And hello, Savannah, Georgia. Thanks for tuning in to Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. That song you just heard was Heathens by 21 Pilots. And my name is Julia M. Spencer. You tuned into Real Estate Real Talk on April 4th, 2018. Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. And before I get started with the show today, just want to let you know that the viewpoints expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. And in today's show, I want to talk a little bit about the other side of vacation rentals that I usually don't talk about much. And that will be the neighbors, the people living close to vacation rentals, and any issues that arise from that. And I also want to talk about rules and regulations a bit and what the actual ordinance says here in Savannah, in this beautiful city where we live. And as you know, on my show, I try to find all angles of any particular issue and present those sides to you. So hopefully, if you're a host or neighbor or a guest, that you can maybe learn something from what we talk about here. And as a disclaimer, another disclaimer here, I got lots of disclaimers. I am an Airbnb host here in Savannah, so I have a lot of stories about guests and hosts and that side of things. But today we're going to talk about the neighbors and the people that are impacted by vacation rental businesses that aren't necessarily involved in working in them. We don't live on islands, so we have to consider our neighbors. And for that purpose, I have actually invited and want to welcome to the show Patrick Johnson, who has been on my show before, but this is the first time he's here live in the studio near Troop Square in downtown Savannah. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Julia.
And thanks for coming back.
Sure.
How's it feel? How's it feel being live this time?
It's a lot easier when it's live.
I think so too. We're going to be improvising here a lot. So Patrick is an actor. If you've heard my shows before, he also works in the landscaping business. But the way I know him is as a guest, and now, of course, a friend, because it's been just coming so many years now to Savannah. And but the reason I have you here today, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is because you actually have some other issues with vacation rentals, and you live. Why don't you just tell me the story? We talked yesterday a little bit, and you can just let the listeners know what we talked about.
So as I've mentioned before on the show, I wear a lot of hats, especially where I live. I've been on my community board. I volunteered to be on their board for, I think it's 7 or 8 years now. I'm in charge of maintenance, which covers all the common grounds of our community. And we actually do live on what's known as an aisle. There's a causeway that goes over into our community of about 330 houses. We do have part-time security there. People have to check in, especially on busy times like the weekends, especially in the summertime. And
this is where?
This is in Connecticut. This is about 60 miles north of New York City in Connecticut, on the western side of the state of Connecticut.
So it's a vacation spot, a lot like
well,
this.
I didn't realize that. I mean, yes, I live on Candlewood Lake, which is a big recreational lake. It's about 11 miles end to end and about 2 miles wide at its widest point. It's an odd-shaped K, but yeah, there's a lot of boating takes place there. There's a state park right down the road called Squanch Pond. On any given Saturday or Sunday, Squanch Pond is closed by 10 o'clock in the morning because of all the van full of families and people coming up from New York who they fill up the park so quickly it's closed by 10 o'clock in the morning and no one else can go in there. So
it sounds a little like Tybee on like Orange Crush weekend, although they don't never close.
they close.
St. Patrick's Day.
They close there. So anyway, and what got us onto this subject that we're going to talk about today is being on the board. Like I said, I'm on the maintenance, but I also do the waterfront, which is our beachfront area by our clubhouse. And over the past couple of summers, I live in a pretty close-knit community, and we're very social with each other. We know each other very well. But I go down to our beach on any given Saturday or Sunday summer weekend. I don't recognize 90% of the people down there. And I was just perplexed by the whole thing. And someone mentioned to me last year Airbnb. I said, what? I said, we don't have Airbnb here. And they're like, yeah, we do. Go on the website, you'll find at least a dozen houses that are offering out rooms, if not the whole house. And what happens is that I found out that some of the rooms that are being let out to 2 people, those 2 people then invite 10 of their friends to come over for the day, and they all go down to the beach.
And they don't actually have rented anything. They're
No.
just like friends of friends.
Right.
Friends of guests.
Friends of guests. And so this has caused me to go through our bylaws. I know every community's bylaws are different, and I'm sure the listeners out there are probably wondering, gosh, I have no idea what our bylaws are. But yeah, I talked to Julie about this last night. I said, it's become a problem. And I don't want to become a police state. I know other communities in my area issue passes. And that pass is good for 4 people. And each household gets 2 passes. So 8 people can go to the beach or go to the areas. Some are beaches right on, to their beach areas, swim areas. I don't want to do that. I mean, I like our open and free community, so to speak. But that may be what we have to do in order to prevent people coming down at 10 o'clock in the morning, grabbing a dozen beach chairs, and they sit there empty until 2 o'clock in the afternoon when their friends show up. It's just not. I know this. I'm nitpicking, but I'm also worried because they don't understand the health rules we have to follow as far as food on the beach and things. They bring their dogs down. They defecate all over the beach and stuff. I mean, it's just, they change baby diapers and leave them on the beach. There's very little respect I've found from a lot of the weekenders. Now, I know you probably have a lot more horror stories than I do, but this is just from a standpoint of them using a common area. I have nothing against anybody making a profit, but I don't think a lot of the Airbnb hosts are being forthcoming with their guests as to what they can and cannot do. And I think they're actually promising them more than they're actually entitled to. I've had a few guests come to me and say, I was told I could get a boat slip. I said, no, there's a waiting list of about 50 people long to get a boat slip. You're not going to get a boat slip for the weekend or the month or whenever long you have to rent it.
You're actually talking about like a beach area that's common to everybody in that community. But not to the whole world, right?
Not to the whole, well, and there's the debate that we've had because there was a very famous beach in Connecticut over in Old Greenwich that they were charging people. You had to have a pass. You had to be in the community in order to use that beach. And by law, every beach is supposedly open to the public. Now you can, and you have to allow them to get there. I don't know what it's like on a lake beach. On an oceanfront beach, I know it's a lot different. You have to provide access for the public to be able to use it. No one owns into the ocean. But I don't know what that's like, like I said, on a lake. But yes, I do know that you can, I think because other communities are doing it, they're able to restrict who's able to use the beach and who's not.
And that's kind of a little bit the trend that I've seen. I mean, when first these vacation rentals came on the market, and of course Airbnb, I'm talking Airbnb right now because it's the biggest one, but there's HomeAway, VRBO, all these other ones. There's all kinds of niche websites out there for specialty groups to rent these places. I mean, before that, it was kind of like a small set of people that were doing it, but now it's like ever encompassing. So
yes.
we're having to deal now with neighbors complaining, things happening like yours. I have a lot of neighbors that I'm very, very careful and very protective of as well. Do you see this as a trend, like nationwide, maybe? Or?
Well, in my community, it's getting bigger and bigger. And in fact, I found out a few people who I know who are actually renting out their whole houses and whatnot. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that he was doing that. But I know when I first started Airbnb with you, I make it a point. I've said this before about just regular rentals anywhere. Try to leave the place as good, if not better, than the way you found it. But always be courteous and be polite. I don't see why people have a hard time doing that. I've gotten to know your neighbors just because they see me so much, and I'm friendly with them, and I want them to know me because I want them to realize I'm not a stranger. They can trust me. I trust them. If they see something going on with my car or whatever, they'll call somebody. But anyway, I think it's better to not be so reclusive, especially when you're doing something like Airbnb, because you're going to these areas, for example, my community, where everybody knows each other, and we wave to each other, and we drop-by factor is huge, and where on the weekends you never go out to dinner. You're going to your friend's house, or you're having people over to your house for dinner, because that you can go out to dinner anytime you want in New York or outside the place, but during the weekends you want to stay in that community because there's no reason to go anywhere else. But yes, I'm finding there's more traffic. There's more people who don't abide by the speed limits. Oh my gosh, our speed limit's 20 miles an hour. I guarantee people doing 40, 45 miles, they're yelling all the time. But we got kids, we got pets, all these different things. But yes, I find it to be, it's becoming more of a, I don't want to say problem, but I don't find that people are, and this goes, and I'm sorry, but this goes to some of the hosts as well, that the vacation rental people are really that concerned or even care about the rest of the community.
And that's actually a really, really good introduction here to my next question, because it's so prevalent, because it has grown so much, because anybody and everybody in anywhere else now wants to rent a room, makes a little bit extra cash, or even has maybe converted their long-term rentals to short-term rentals because it's much more lucrative. Now we're talking about regulating this whole thing. And I know for a fact here in Savannah, and I don't know how much you followed this, but I've been kind of a little bit on the outside, not just figuratively, but literally. I'm actually outside the city. Most of my rentals are outside city limits. But I kind of been watching in from afar and kind of monitoring it. But I know a lot of the hosts in this area have had a lot of difficulties because they've been doing this forever. And some of these people have been doing it for ages. The whole vacation rental business side of it has been around. I told my friend Jason the other day, since the Roman times. I mean, renting a room has always been around. It's like one of those industries, like, going to a house of prostitution, alcohol and tobacco is always going to be around, always there. And so the hotel industry is the same. So what I'm trying to say is, since it's growing, though, now we're getting into a space where we have to regulate it somehow, because we have all these problems like you've mentioned. And the people that have been there before feel like they need to be grandfathered into the rules that existed prior to the regulations. And there's been a lot of controversy about this here in Savannah. So do you know anything about that? Or I can give you a little bit of background of what I know.
Yeah, but most of Savannah I know just through you. And that's the thing I've been researching in my community. That's why I've talked to you about insurance and whatnot, which we'll get into later. But I'm sure the reason the regulations are coming up is I think the city feels as though they're missing revenue here, because that's one reason. That's the main reason, I think, anytime government gets involved, is because we're not benefiting from this other than them coming out and spending money in our communities, but we should be getting money from the Airbnb hosts because they're getting money. And go ahead.
And as they should. I believe, I'm not a pro or con for paying more or less taxes. I try to pay as little as I have to and still abide by the law, but I believe some taxes are necessary because we enjoy a lot of great things here in the city, and we need to be able to figure out some way to pay for that as well. And, if you're a vacation rental host in the city and you're not paying taxes, but the hotel industry is, I think that's a little unfair. But if we can figure out, and this is where we get into, once we start doing these regulations at the very beginning, there's going to be a lot of hiccups and a lot of problems, and people are going to be complaining, and you're going to put a law into place not realizing that it actually conflicts with another law. And I have a very specific example for this, actually, because I did a little bit of research on this. So, we don't live on islands, even though you're describing a situation where it is an island, actually, but we do have to worry about our neighbors. And we do have to make sure that as a host here, you do watch for your neighbors. I can probably come up with all kinds of horror stories, but I have gotten, where I live anyways, I have gotten the calls in the middle of the night when I'm out of town, in all places, with kids on spring break, partying outside one of my homes, nice residential suburban neighborhood, not in the city here in Savannah, but getting drunk, playing loud boombox music. This is quoting the words of my neighbors.
It's all right. I mean to snort.
I have a couple trees outside. I have a couple trees. People are hanging off the trees, just partying, hey, everybody drives by yelling at them, I've had Orange Crush, I have a little bit pet peeve here with Orange Crush. And by the way, I did read the disclaimer so I can say whatever I want here on the air. I have a little pet peeve with Orange Crush visitors, and it has nothing to do with the type of visitor it is. It's the fact that they actually violently have destroyed my properties before during that weekend, so I'm very careful who I admit to my properties on that weekend. But, when you have people walking around urinating in the front yard, passed out drunk in the front yard, I, as a neighbor, would very much be complaining, and I would be starting to look through the books and reading the bylaws and things. And unfortunately, you mentioned it, but condo association, homeowners association, they do have bylaws, and they're supposed to be filed, I guess, at a court recorder usually. And this is a place where you can go as a neighbor to see what the regulations are for your neighborhood. But a lot of places don't even have that.
Well, but even if they do, and this is the sad part of the ordinances and whatnot and regulations, they really have no teeth to enforce it unless they have.
That's my next question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean and I've mentioned this before on your show. As far as our community is concerned, we have all these different regulations and whatnot that we hope people will, in good faith abide by. But we really don't have any way of enforcement. We have a security force there, but they're there to check people in and out. I mean, check people in to, make sure they're supposed to be there. They have to give a name, where they're going, the address. But other than that, we have no teeth. People come to the board that I'm on. My neighbor starts work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we have an ordinance they're not supposed to start till 8. Well, go do something about it. I said, well, no, you as the neighbor need to go first. Don't get us involved as a board. That's your neighbor. Set up a good relationship with your neighbor. Talk to your neighbor first. If they continue to ignore you, then yes, we'll get involved, or we'll get the town involved. But that's part of the problem too. People are afraid to personally get involved. They want us, the board members, to take care of their problems. And it isn't it's a community problem, but they should be the first ones to try to go to their neighbor, try to make nice with them and say, hey, look, I'm up here on the weekends or whatever. I'd really like to sleep in if I can on Saturday until at least 8 o'clock. Can you hold off till that? And actually we have a bylaw that says you shouldn't start till 8. And sometimes the neighbors go, oh, I didn't know that. Or sometimes the neighbor's not even there and the contractor's showing up early and starting work. So just simply presenting what you know first and handling it yourself may help out, and that's what we have to kind of do. But
I'm a big believer in that as well. Actually,
knock on your neighbor's door, introduce yourself. Don't be a jerk. Just, hey, this is what's going on.
And if the problem continues, so you can always take it to the next level. But I think everybody that's a neighbor should establish this set of levels of how they approach a problem, and kind of start with the lowest denominator first, which is actually talking to the person that's causing the problem before they take it to the homeowners association, condo association, then maybe the city if you're within city limits, and then the county and so on and so forth. But don't call the police and have them show up at your neighbor's doorstep. You just eliminated a lot of really good plus points with your neighbors there, because the next time you screw up on something, it's going to be on your back.
They're all
for
over.
that,
Yep,
so.
Exactly. And I've been, knock on wood, I've been really lucky to have great neighbors in my community. I can't say the same for when I lived in New York City in the apartments. I mean, New York City, again, it is an ordinance that you're supposed to have 3/4 of your hardwood floors covered by carpeting, because especially when you're upstairs trampling around in these hard-heeled shoes, everyone down below echoes down below. And I had a neighbor with the same kind of issue, but talked to him about, I didn't know. I said, we got a baby. He goes, I'm so sorry. And the next day they bought carpet. So it's like problem solved. But otherwise, instead of taking a broom and hitting the ceiling with it and yell at them, which people used to do, I'm sure they still do it.
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah, the old-fashioned way of saying, hey, you're making too much noise.
I need to get to do that. I've never done that, but I know people have done that in the past. That's a good way to resolve issues. You know what? That's actually a good way to resolve issues, though. If you don't want to talk to them personally, you don't want to call them, you don't want to take to the next level, take the broom.
Well, the broom, or write a note or something, slip it under the door and run away.
I've gotten those, too. I've gotten those, too. Well, it's a good thing to know, because I actually wanted to ask you also, before we get to the half hour here, we have some announcements on your legality as a homeowner association member or condo association member, what you can do in terms of enforcing anything. I mean, legally.
Well, and that was, I was kind of exhausting my ends of, what I had, what kind of ammo I had to combat this. And the only thing I was really able to come up with was try to scare our community Airbnb hosts with insurance liability. My biggest, I don't care what happens in your own home and whatnot, but if one of your guests comes down to our beach, is running around and breaks their ankle, who's liable, who's responsible? And I've talked to our insurance agent at great length, and I've talked to you about what Airbnb supposedly covers, and our insurance agent says, look, if these people are renting out their house and they're vacation rentals and they're not tenants, so to speak, they're guests, they're a commercial, they become a commercial property, a commercial entity, and they have to be insured differently. And he said, I guarantee most of them are not going to want to do that. But if something does happen on your common property, we're going to go after the homeowner first. We're not going, and they can go after Airbnb or they can go after the guests they had. But he says, yeah, by all means, they're not covered, so to speak, by our insurance. We'll cover any person who lives there, but we're not required to cover. And that's the thing; it's a very fine line. I shouldn't say we're not required, but that's where I'm trying to say, look, you need to come clean and let us know who your guests are, so that we know who to kind of look out for and know how to. And I don't like using the term police, but that's really what my lifeguards end up having to do with these people. They have to go up and say, look, you must be a guest here or something, but this is the bylaws down here and whatnot, and they're able to do it in a nice way. Otherwise, they have to call me and I have to come down and be the bad guy.
Yeah, and insurance is a whole big can of worms.
Well,
if we start opening it now, we can talk for the rest of the half hour about that.
I hate insurance when I have to pay for it, but I love it when it works for you.
Yeah, exactly. And also, as a vacation rental host here in this city, I have to say that it's also a moving target. You sign up for insurance, you think you have certain coverage, it expires after the year, they change the regulations. More times than not, you don't look over what the changes are. I don't anyways. I would be reading all day long. But in addition, what I have found, and this is something that's kind of like a little bit of that can scare you if you are a host out here in Savannah or anywhere else, is that a lot of the insurance companies actually make it a point to give you the runaround before they actually cover something that they're actually supposed to be covering. And they do that to the point that you give up. And that's kind of their goal. If they can get the runaround to 10 people and 9 of them just give up after weeks and hours on the phone.
Even if one person gives up out of those 10.
There you go. And and what I've heard, and please correct me, this is something that's kind of like through the grapevine, they actually employ people to give you that runaround. That is their goal. Your goal is to make sure you drag this on forever. I've seen this in investment cycles, in investment circles, real estate investment circles, that people just drag this on before they have to relinquish a property, for example, that they got at a tax sale or something. To hold on to it as long as possible, they'll just file another complaint, another response to a complaint. As long as it's in the courts for years at a time and the investor can hold on to the property. Same thing here. If the insurance can get a claimant on the phone forever, nothing gets resolved and they don't have to pay.
Well,
and the longer the better.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how many people are not working and can afford to be on the phone for 2 to 3 hours a day talking to the insurance company?
And that's exactly what they bank on.
Right. And especially at lunch hour, they know that's when a lot of the calls are going to come in, and they're going to sit there and just put you on hold for half an hour. And before you know it, your half-hour lunchtime is up, and you got to go back to work.
That's half an hour before even answering the phone. And actually, you were here last time. I was on the phone for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And the only question I had that time is whether or not...
it was a refund. It was for a refund.
It was a refund, yeah. So a person was getting a refund. It was something about...
cancellation.
Whether I am in an urban area or not. And I was considered an urban area, but nobody at Airbnb could tell me what an urban area is defined as. Nobody. Not the supervisor, not the low bottom person, customer service person I talked to, not, this...
Well,
I was on the phone a long time.
Well, and I heard you arguing with them. It's like, What do you mean we're not a vacation destination? The majority of
Oh,
people
yeah.
who come here, they're going to
That's
Tiggy Beach.
right.
It's like, what do you mean?
They say
What do you
we-
mean? Most of the people coming to Savannah are here for business?
Yeah.
We're doing Airbnb. You were laughing. You're like,
I was actually trying. I was actually, dear listeners here in Savannah, by the way, we have to take a break here in a minute. But I was trying to record that conversation. I was going to bring that to you. And as soon as I mentioned that I was a radio host, they're like, well, you are not allowed to record us. And of course, I can't legally unless they allow me. But that conversation was almost done very, very quickly when I mentioned that.
maybe that should be something everyone says when they talk to our insurance companies. By the way, I'm recording you. I'm a radio host, even though you're not.
It's true. But the laws are. I have to follow rules. There's laws in this state actually. You know what? The laws in the state actually state that you can record anybody on a phone as long as one of the two
One of the
people
two
know.
people, yeah.
Exactly. So I know about it. You don't know about it.
No. Well, yeah, when you're recording me, I don't know about it, but you're right. You do.
But
You are allowed to do that. yes.
anyways, we're getting sidetracked here. I love talking. Well, we have the best conversations here. But anyways, dear Savannah listeners, just want to remind you that you are listening to WRULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. We are at the bottom of the hour at my show here, Real Estate Real Talk. And I'm going to play you some announcements real quick because we have some really cool stuff going on in this town. And Patrick and I will be back with some more lively conversation after this. Thank you back, Savannah. Thanks for tuning into Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer right here on WRULP. Middle of the day, middle of the week. That's when my show is on. Thanks for tuning in. And with me here in the studio is Patrick Johnson. Hello, Patrick.
Hi, Julia.
We're talking about vacation rentals and specifically how they impact neighborhoods and neighbors. And it's because we have a lot of them here down in Savannah. And for this show specifically, actually what I have done a little bit of research. I was kind of a little bit lazy because it doesn't directly impact me because I don't really have vacation rentals in this city. Or maybe I do, which is a question that we'll have. We had this question just outside.
Yeah.
Outside the studio here. But I know there has been a lot of upheaval about this in the past, and there was lawsuit filed and fees, fines, cease and desist orders to some of the hosts here in the city. And I haven't really followed the process because most of my vacation rentals are outside city limits. And what I thought don't apply to the short-term vacation rental definition, which I thought was 31 days and over, was not a vacation rental, and that's my one rental here in Savannah downtown is. So, but looking today at the website, actually, I just typed in City of Savannah short-term vacation rentals, and I got the website up. The last time, very honest here to the Savannah listeners, the last time I checked on how this ordinance is or what even the laws are in the city was years ago. And so when I typed it today, I was actually very surprised to find a website that has information about it. And it's very recent information. A lot of these ordinances were actually passed just last year in August and September, which I didn't even know that there was regulation this recently. The only last update I had is when I was going downtown with an Uber driver, and he said he was renting a room downtown. And I'm like, well, do you have a license? And he's like, no, I don't need to because I live there too. So I'm like, okay, that must have changed because when I listed my one room downtown about 3 or 4 years ago, the city was on my back. I don't want to say a bad word here, but they were on my back within a day. They were calling me and telling me to take it down and I don't comply with the regulations. And I'm like, well, where are they? And they had nothing like a website or anything like that back then. So, anyways, you can chime in.
No, but listen, and that's like we talked earlier between us. That's one of the problems with people who do try to comply is that they normally can't find answers to the questions they have until they get a letter in the mail that says, by the way, you owe the city such X amount of dollars for such and such. It's like, but I didn't know such an ordinance existed.
Exactly.
They said, well, you should have checked the website. I did. Where is it? And I said, well, it's usually in some obscure place. I mean, you gotta look over the whole thing. They'll put in a corner here or there.
These are not searchable websites. Back 3 years ago,
Right.
it would be a PDF file that's uploaded
Sure.
somewhere.
Yeah.
You can't search it, so you kind of have to read the whole thing, and
Yeah.
it's scanned with a really bad scanner with like all kinds of background. Anyway, that's a long story. So today for the show, I actually called, and I believe, see, this is my first step here. I didn't even know what department to call. It said on the website, it's the city's Savannah Urban Planning and Development Department. But when I looked at the regulations, it has a tourism department as the point of contact. So I called the tourism department. They sent me to the Savannah Urban Planning and Development Department. Right there, I'm already getting a runner because I don't know what.
Well, they don't either, it sounds
I
like.
don't think so. And so I called the department. They haven't had a chance to call me back. Maybe they did while I've been here live on a show. But I didn't give them much time to respond anyways. I'm like last minute person. But the two people that I was directed to, and this is for you listeners here in Savannah, are Beth Barnes and Bridget Leidy. I don't know how to pronounce her name. But hopefully one of you ladies, if you're listening or if you're involved or work with them, have them call me back. And I'd love to get you on the show and ask you questions about ordinances, about rules and laws. But apparently there is a process now in place to apply to have your property become a certified short-term vacation rental. So my first question was, what even constitutes, what's the definition of a short-term vacation rental?
Right.
And this is what the question we had just sitting outside. From what I found on the website, and I'm gonna just read this because this is interesting, because it's already conflicting what it is defined as. So the city of Savannah defines short-term vacation rentals as the rental of an entire dwelling unit for 30 days or less. STVRs, that's the acronym, are permitted in mixed-use zoning districts. Any property operating as a STVR must complete an application process and secure a STVR certificate to operate legally within the city. Please refer to the zoning bulletin to determine where STVRs are permitted. So, having said that, later on that same exact document, what it stated is that, okay, if you're renting your unit out for more than 30 days, if you rent it out for 90 days or more, then you're still responsible to pay the city the tax for the first 30 days. So are you a vacation rental, short-term vacation rental or not? What's with all these, what's with the hosts like myself that targets SCAD students who stay for a semester? And this would be a 3-month period. Then do I have to pay the tourism tax for the first 30 days still? Do I have to still get a certificate? Don't know.
Yeah.
I can't decipher it. Am I a short-term vacation rental or not with the one property that I have?
Well, but according to Airbnb, you're not a vacation place.
I'm not
There are
in
people
a
here for-
tourism area.
That's right.
There you go. So anyways, my little ears are always perked for what I'm allowed to do and not allowed to do and how to even get around that. So, and find out what the process is.
Well, what's interesting, Julia, is I listen to a lot of talk radio when I'm in the New York area, and Lyft and Uber and all this. They've a lot of debates going on, and what's happening with Airbnb as well. And we talked about this earlier as well. I think it's growing so fast that it's hard for. I think regulators they're so far behind. They're just trying to catch up. And I think they're throwing laws down, which they realize later may or may not be good for the Airbnb hosts or the people renting, for that matter, the guests. But those are things, I know they're trying to work it out. I know they want to be able to get some money out of this, and rightfully so. But I think they're so far behind the 8 ball right now because things are growing so fast. They'll eventually get there, but it's good to keep your nose to the grindstone and keep looking and try to find as much information as you can. So at least you're in the know. But I'm sure that website's going to change a lot over the next few months.
For sure. And as stated, the ordinances are dated quite recently. I mean, in terms of how long laws are usually on the books, this is last year's development, so it didn't even have that much time to mature or get all the kinks worked out, I believe.
Well,
Now,
let me ask you this. And I don't know because everyone's just filing for their taxes, but I have a friend in New York who teaches voice lessons to aspiring actors. And she has been informed of late because of the new tax laws, an individual cannot write off voice lessons or hair and makeup or things like that, which are essential for them for auditions or for their training. They're not allowed to write them off. They have to incorporate. They have to become a small business, and then they can do that. It used to be you could write off expenses as a self-employed person. Mm-hmm. But my understanding now is a lot of that is changing. I don't know how that's going to affect Airbnb hosts because you as an individual, or are you, again, you know more about this than me. Are you being paid through Airbnb? Or are you being paid from the hosts? From the guests? And if so, are you able to write off damages to your home, or when they stay, or when you have to buy new sheets, or when you have to buy laundry detergent to do the laundry for all this? These are, I don't know how the new tax laws are going to impact the hosts as well with that, or if they even have. Like I said, I know you probably filed way early because you're just so. Speaking of which, you got like, what is it, 14 days?
How many more days do I have to file an extension? That's my question.
I think you have till the 16th or 17th.
I'm going to file an extension at the very last moment. And then I'm going to file my taxes at the very last extension. That's usually how it is. But anyways, yeah, what you're saying is valid. We're not talking about the laws on what is and what isn't allowed in a city, for example, like Savannah, as a vacation rental host, what's allowed and what you can and cannot do. But we're talking about a moving target even on the tax side. This is a whole nother subject. If we have the tax laws have changed. I've made a couple of radio shows on this, actually, dear listeners. If you want to go back to the WRUU.org website, you can probably find them there towards the end of last year, and where I kind of summarize the things. But there's a lot of changes. Even if you're a business owner, you are now disallowed a lot of entertainment expenses. So you have to be very careful how you categorize the things that you buy for your vacation rental business, which applies to your friend as well, I'm sure. Now, I am incorporated. I believe it's a good idea for everybody that has a sort of a business where they want to write stuff off to be incorporated just for the liability side of it. But
liability and tax.
Tax
it's always been.
Yeah.
You can always write off more as a corporation than you can as an individual.
Exactly. So, and the laws are favorable for real estate investors. And even though we're not per se really considered 100% real estate investors with vacation rental ownership or properties that are vacation rentals, because it kind of falls a little bit into a hybrid of hotel industry and investment, real estate investment. I'm kind of like in between. You still can take a lot of advantages. But my philosophy on these things are, and this is something you listeners might want to embrace as well, the laws will change and the tax laws will change. It is your job as a business owner to keep abreast on everything that's going on and adjust your business around the way the laws change. And that
would drive me nuts.
That will never stop. That's an ever-going thing. It's like taxes for me. Taxes is not April or October in my case because I always file late. Taxes is all year round. Right. I never stop. So it's just constant. Once you embrace that and accept that, you're good to go. But if you fight it, you're going to have a hard time, So anyways, what else do I want to say about that?
We kind of got away from the Airbnb hosts and guests, but that's still, it's an important thing, especially for your Airbnb hosts, because the guests don't care. They want to show up and have a nice
cheap
room.
Place to stay. Yeah, exactly. Well, no, this is the other thing that I found on the website, since we can go back to that a little bit. City ordinances here in Savannah, and I really, really am going to try to get somebody that's in the know about this on the show, because that would be much better than us just speculating what it means. But a residential dwelling that's considered a short-term rental, according to the website on the city of Savannah, if I don't interpret it wrongly. And dear listeners, I'm an educated person. I do know how to read stuff. If I can't figure it out, then people that maybe have less of an education background or a background in reading things and deciphering it are going to even have even more difficult time. But a short-term vacation rental excludes group living or other lodging uses. It says that right in the ordinance. So excludes group living. What does that mean? So if somebody lives in my home where I live as well, that is excluded. Is that what that means? Is that what you interpret it? So basically, I can't rent the whole house, but I can rent a room as long as I live there too. And what if it's my second residence? I live there too, but part of the time.
Right.
So again, dear listeners, the laws exist in a way that you can always find a way to work around it.
Well, it sounds very vague to me. So it's like, but yeah, I mean, you're right. And from what I understand, in fact, I was listening to you with one of your guests. She was upset because you weren't living in the house that she was going to be a guest of.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
No, I live down the street. I'm right, I'm a phone call away.
You can always say that you live there because you always stay.
Well, yeah, and I do. That's why I said, no, I'm like one of your hosts, so, but, yeah, but I don't know if that's a trend too, that more and more people are getting involved with Airbnb, and how, again, that's going to fall into insurance, and how it's going to fall into your tax, and how can the city prove that you've rented out the whole house and that you weren't living there? Those. Does Airbnb keep a record of that, or is that just something you have to honestly, admit for yourself?
The one thing that I have learned about Airbnb, and I don't want to say anything bad about my golden horse here, because I do make a lot of money through Airbnb, is that the main objective of Airbnb, as with any business, is to make money. So they will do whatever it takes to make the most amount of it, and they will. They work around the laws just like every other good business does. So they're not going to specifically protect you. They're not going to track you if it doesn't give them a financial reward. And they're not going to follow even of their own regulations, if they can find a way to keep you on the phone for 3 hours and not have to resolve anything. Yeah. But in the long run, this is what I always tell people that are complaining about that, is just factor that in to your cost and the things that you do on your side, and get yourself compensated on some other end. There's going to be times where you'll lose, and there's going to be times when they lose. And that's just the way business is done. As long as you have a pipeline going, eventually you'll come out on top.
Well, good luck with getting a city official in here. That would be great.
That would
if you
be
can get
awesome,
somebody
yeah.
who can explain this.
The calls are in. City officials out there.
Terms, yeah.
Call me back.
Yeah, by all means.
Anyways, but I wanted to briefly just, because we only have a few more minutes left. I can talk forever. This is great. I did find a couple of things that I'm pretty sure are set in stone ordinances and laws right now here in the city. So I'm going to just go ahead and blurt those out to you out there, because I think those are less vague than the rest of the stuff I talked about. The second department that I was talking about, and I was talking about the Office of Urban Planning and Development. The other office that I was sent to was the Office of Tourism Management and Ambassadorship Department. And they actually have the short-term vacation rental applications there. Their number is 912-525-1500, and they're located on Bay Street. And it states that the initial fee is $150. Okay, now we're getting into something that's completely confusing me again, so never mind. Because the initial fee says is $150 for the first year, renewals are $50, and then later on that same page, the non-refundable initial annual fee paid to the city of Savannah is $300. So
holy cow.
There we go. We got a conflicting information again. It's a moving target still, basically.
Well,
and
here's the problem. I mean, God, this is the whole thing that's going on with the census. Once you sign up or once you admit to something, it's like you feel like they've got you. They feel like, they know more about you than you want to reveal. And, they'll find a way of coming after you. But, wow. I'm glad I'm... Well, no, I should say I'm glad I'm not an Airbnb host. But we've talked about me becoming one. So
and this is what I'm suggest. I mean, if you're planning to become one, try to do it outside city limits until you figure out what the laws are. There's information on violations. They can revoke your certificate. What else did I see here? Yeah, here goes one. If for properties rented for 90 days or less, hotel motel taxes must be remitted on the first 30 days of the rental, which kind of makes me wonder, am I considered a short-term vacation rental at or under 30 days? but the city will still collect taxes in the first 30 days. That applies to everybody. If you're renting a house out for a year, do you still pay the first 30-day taxes for the city if your place is in the city? Anyways, more research is necessary, in other words. Another thing that's on the website is a registered short-term vacation rental map. Here's another discrepancy. My property is outside the colored areas on that map, and every single thing that's tracked, every short-term vacation rental that has a certificate and is tracked by the city is within those colored areas. I'm outside the colored areas. What does that mean? Does that certification process then subsequently not apply to me? I'm hoping. Anyways, I hope we can get the right people online here to ask these questions very soon. What I'm going to do, because we only have 2 minutes left, unfortunately, I need to do just a little bit more housekeeping. Did you want to add anything else?
No. Good luck to everybody. Me too.
Good luck to everybody out
Yeah,
there. That
all my trespassing guests that are going to be visiting my community up in Connecticut.
Yeah, and you have the season starting up. No, you guys had snow just the other day.
We
right?
had 6 inches of snow. Was it yes? No, 2 days ago. I can't even. I don't even know what day it is today.
You showed me a copy. I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh. Anyways, let me just play a really quick announcement, and I'll be right back just for the couple last notes, because we're almost at the top of the hour, Savannah. So just a moment here. There you go.
WRUU brings you the most diverse and passionate local radio programming on the air in Savannah. This all-volunteer and nonprofit community radio station accepts no money from any form of government. Our diversity and independence is made possible only through the generous financial support of listeners like you. We rely on your annual and ongoing monthly contributions to cover the many costs associated with bringing you our broadcast and web programming. If you are a contributor, thank you. If you are not yet a contributor, please show your appreciation of the role WRUU plays in your life by becoming a contributor in any amount. You can donate quickly and easily by credit card or check. Just find the donate and subscribe links at WRUU.org. Thanks for listening to and supporting WRUU.
And thanks for having tuned in to Real Estate Real Talk with Julia M. Spencer. Thanks, Patrick, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Julia.
Always glad when I have somebody to speculate and chat for an hour. It's much easier than me just going off on my own. And for you listeners out there, my show is Real Estate Real Talk. You can reach me by just emailing me, realestate@juliamspencer.com. I'm on at noon on Wednesdays, middle of the day, middle of the week. I also will be hosting a show tomorrow from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm going to be playing music, so there's going to be a lot less talking, a lot more music there. If you heard the music on the show, tune in again because it is always different. The next show right here on the station after me talking is going to be Jazz Brunch, hosted by Dave Lake. Feel free to send me comments, questions, suggestions, or if you want me to make another show with another topic, feel free to suggest that topic to me. Again, thank you, Savannah listeners, for tuning in. I hope you have an awesome, fabulous rest of your Wednesday and week, and I hope you can tune in again next week. And you're listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with Global Soul.
For your free guide to real estate investing, visit juliamspencer.com.